Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Chris Paxson. I'm president of Brown, and I am very pleased to welcome you to the 96th Stephen A. Ogden Jr. Class of 60 Memorial Lecture on International Affairs. The Ogden Lecture is one of Brown's oldest and most distinguished lectures. Since the first Ogden Lecture in 1965, the university has welcomed heads of state, senior diplomats, senators, prime ministers, prominent journalists, and other observers of the international scene. And they've spoken from personal experience about urgent matters between nations or across regions of the world. The Ogden Lectures were established as a memorial to Stephen A. Ogden Jr., a member of the Brown class of 1960, who died in 1963 from injuries sustained in an automobile accident during his junior year. As a student, Stephen dreamed of promoting international peace through a career in international relations, and this dream is still shared by many Brown students who enter our international relations concentration and other concentrations, and the international relations concentration is among the largest offered in the university. Now, before I introduce today's Ogden lecturer, I am saddened to note the very recent passing of Stephen's sister, Peg Ogden. As many in the Brown community know, Peg Ogden was, for so many years, the driving force behind the Ogden Lecture, keenly interested and engaged in building it into the prestigious forum it's become. And all of us are indebted to Peg for her dedication to the Ogden Lecture and her support for international affairs education. So in light of Peg's passing, we're especially grateful that our good friend, Dr. Robert Ackerman, has joined us today to represent the Ogden family. And please join me in acknowledging Bob. So today, it is my very distinct honor to introduce the former Secretary General of the UN, His Excellency Ban Kimoon. In the 72 years since the founding of the UN, only 8 individuals have ever assumed this position that has been described by some as, and I quote, the most impossible job on earth. It's a claim that I think few would dispute, given its charge to reconcile the political interests of 193 member states. Mr. Ban's tenure at the helm of the UN spanned a particularly stark decade of complicated conflicts, from Syria to South Sudan to Yemen, and the unfathomable flow of refugees that these conflicts set in motion. It was also, though, highlighted by successes, major successes, in improving the quality of life for millions of people around the globe. During his 2 terms of office, extreme poverty and child mortality rates declined. More girls around the world were educated than ever. And in 2015, the UN adopted 17 Sustainable Development Goals that aim to end poverty, protect the planet, and ensure prosperity for all in the coming decades. Lifting the marginalized has always been an article of faith for Mr. Ban. In an interview with The Telegraph, he noted that he tried, quote, to be the voice of voiceless people and defender of defenseless people around the world. The establishment of UN Women in 2010 during his first term was an emphatic statement to the world that gender discrimination just can't continue, it can't stand. UN Women has strengthened global efforts to empower women in health and education, economic development, and leadership, a point that was underscored in a very, very powerful way by Mr. Ban's success in increasing the number of women in senior UN management by over 40%. By all accounts, including his own, the UN's proudest accomplishment on Mr. Ban's watch was the crafting and entry into force in November of 2016 of the Paris Agreement on Climate Change. In the run-up to the Paris conference, Mr. Ban tirelessly shaped global consensus around clean energy, limiting global temperature rise, and climate-resilient development strategies. When the Paris Agreement was reached, a jubilant Mr. Bond noted, quote, what was once unthinkable is now unstoppable. And I think for our part at Brown, we very, very much hope that that is correct. Now, in the post-UN chapter of his life, Mr. Bond has assumed several leadership positions, including chairman of International Olympic Committee Ethics Commission, the honorary chairman at the Institute of Global Engagement and Empowerment at Yonsei University in his native Korea, and co-chair of the Ban Ki-moon Center for Global Citizens in Vienna. But it's another appointment that stands out, partly because it bears a passing resemblance to his time as UN Secretary General, and that is his elevation to the Elders, which is a London-based organization founded by Nelson Mandela 10 years ago. With his appointment to the Elders, Mr. Bond joins a pantheon of global leaders, among them his president, the 7th Secretary General of the UN, Kofi Annan, and the most recent Ogden lecturer here at Brown, the former president of Brazil, Fernando Cardoso, in advancing together a very high-level agenda of peace and human rights. So we look forward to witnessing how Mr. Bond deploys the wisdom that comes from being one of 8 to hold the most impossible job on earth, and we know that he will approach his endeavors with a deep and abiding commitment to leaving the planet better for future generations. So on behalf of the entire Brown community, please join me in welcoming a distinguished leader who honors the ideals of the Ogden Lecture, His Excellency Ban Ki-moon.
Thank you, President Christina Paxson, for your very kind introduction. And Provost Richard Locke, Ms. Marissa Quinn, Chief of Staff, and Honorable Kim Yong-hyun, Consul General of Republic of Korea in Boston, distinguished professors, distinguished guests, and dear students, ladies and gentlemen. I'm excited to be here in Providence. This is such a unique and picturesque American city. Providence boasts impressive arts and culture, world-class educational institutions like Brown, but this also has a very special meaning to me personally. This is the place where my granddaughter was born 5 years ago. I hope that it's my sincere hope that one day she will come to Brown University as her mother did. Her mother is a graduate of 2011 medical school. In fact, she's here today with me. But most of all, I am very much privileged and honored to have this Stephen A. Ogden Jr. Memorial Lecture on International Affairs at the Brown University, one of the most celebrated institutions of higher learning in the United States. I thank again President Paxson for inviting me to this very important occasion. I commend the vision and leadership of Brown University for changing and channeling as a prestigious academic resources and commitment to global engagement through the Ogden lectures. I know that many distinguished international political, economic, and academic leaders have been here before me, and I'm truly honored for that. I'm also very much grateful to take part in this renowned lecture series and honor the memory and intellectual pursuits of such a bright young man who was taken well before his time. Working towards the advancement of international peace and understanding is particularly timely at this critical juncture for our world and collective future of humanity. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, nowadays we find ourselves in the midst of an era of global change. Dizzying technological advancements in internet, nanotechnology, artificial intelligence are altering how we live in this world. Many people are wondering whether human beings will be able to control the speed and magnitude of the artificial intelligence, or will we be able to overcome this one, or human beings will be subject to robots. For me personally, I'm not an expert in this. I'm not a futurist, but I believe that considering the human wisdom during last many millennia of human history, human being will ultimately be able to control and win over this technological advancement. How to use wisely, that will be, I think, our and your common task. This is why still there is sense of uncertainty and insecurity caused by the very technological advancement which we have achieved. So let us discuss this matter, how we can put all this very important technological advancement into our daily living and for our more prosperous and sustainable development. Despite these, I believe, tempestuous times and the challenges that we face, I also see a great amount of progress and hope in working together to forge a sustainable future. Much of this progress is grounded in the power of partnership and cooperation to achieve our development goals. As much of this hope is driven by my belief in youth empowerment and action. That's why I believe this is a very important occasion for me to meet so many young leaders of today and tomorrow. Many people, professors, they say, you are going to be the leaders of tomorrow. But I have seen so many young people who have already taken very important global leadership today already. Therefore, I firmly believe that we must remain committed to our international system, rooted in multilateral institutions like the United Nations. Solving the problems of the world today, which are intrinsically global in nature, will continue to require robust cooperation and global solutions. During my tenure as United Nations Secretary General, until the end of 2016, I strive to execute my global leadership by leveraging the power of partnership. This is important since the United Nations and its member states can no longer bear all the responsibilities alone in our rapidly changing world. No country in the world, no person in the world, however powerful, however resourceful one may be, I think easily we think that the United States is the most powerful, most resourceful, richest country in the world. United States cannot do it alone. That is why we need to forge a stronger partnership. One of the most important lessons which I learned during the last 10 years is the partnership. Partnership among governments, business communities, and civil society. When we have this very strong triangular partnership, I think we can handle all the issues without much difficulty. That is why I'm again emphasizing that young people and universities are such a crucial part of the ultimate success of our world to ensure a more peaceful and sustainable society. In 1945, as everybody knows, as the ashes of the war lifted, the United Nations was born to provide an international forum for maintaining global peace and security. Its critics were numerous then, but the UN offered all nations and people an alternative to the bombs, guns, and destruction of the Second World War. This alternative was anchored by the guiding belief that diplomacy and cooperation offered the international community a better way for resolving conflicts. And so, 73 years later, the United Nations remains the preeminent forum for every country in the world to address serious global issues together. During these times, the UN has tirelessly pursued its three interconnected pillars: the peace and security, the sustainable development, and human rights. But challenges still remain. When I assumed my job in 2007, I declared that I'll spend all my time and energy in making this world better for all. After 10 years of my duties, I do not know whether I have been able to make this world better for all, because we have still seeing more and more problems, more and more wars, and more refugees. By the time I started my job, there were 11 million refugees in the world. By the time I finished, unfortunately, this number has risen to 55 million, almost 5 times more. Does it mean that we are living in a better world? I'm leaving to the historians whether I was the Secretary General who really contributed to make this world better for all. But as far as I'm concerned, I have done all my efforts and all my energy to make it happen. I'm leaving it to my successor, Antonio Guterres. But without your support, without the active leadership of the United States, it may not happen. You may end up in seeing this world continuously experiencing this kind of a conflict. That's why I really want to discuss this matter with you today. That is why I'm emphasizing the importance of implementing sustainable development goals, which we have agreed, and that is why I'm emphasizing the importance of fostering global citizenship, particularly among young people who will soon take over these jobs. But we must all play our part in this process, particularly young people such as you, and the leading academic institutions like Brown University, if we are to succeed in advancing peace and development around the world. Having said this, let me touch upon 3 areas. First, I'll discuss the great necessity of achieving our sustainable development goals. The goals the United Nations, all the world's leaders and people agreed upon in 2015. Second, I'll address the most serious challenge which we are facing, the climate change phenomena. Third, I'll speak about the need for scaled-up youth and women participation and the role of global citizenship in forging a more sustainable and peaceful and prosperous future all. Esteemed professors and ladies and gentlemen, we have taken significant leap forward in the field of global development in recent years. The international community, guided by the landmark United Nations Millennium Development Goals, known as MDGs, has undoubtedly improved human security around the world. Extreme poverty has been cut in half by 2010. Just 5 years ahead of target goal, the World Bank in 2010 has announced that we have achieved #1 goal, reducing extreme poverty rate by half by 2015. That's one of the most successful achievements the United Nations has done. But that is largely owing to Chinese government's efforts by lifting more than 450 million people. Then we were able to declare that we have achieved that goal, but there are still many people who are going to bed with their hungry stomach every night. There are still many people, almost 1 billion people, who live with just $1.90 a day. Over 6 million children perish a year without any reason before they celebrate 5th birthday. 663 million people remain without safe drinking water. 1.4 billion people live still without electricity. This figure are in danger of worsening as a result of climate change. And there are, again, many people who are suffering from inequality between and within nations. Since 2000, 50% of the increase in global wealth only benefited the top 1% of the world's population. And even more jarring, surprising, a recent report indicated that just 42 individuals of the world hold as much wealth as the 3.7 billion people, like Bill Gates or Warren Buffett, or all this. Only 42 people account for are rich more than 3.7 billion people out of 7.5 billion people. While serving as UN Secretary General, I'm proud to have prioritized and expanded importance of organizations' global development effort. This is what we call it 2030 Agenda and the Sustainable Development Goals with the 17 goals. This covers all spectrums of our life, including that of our planet Earth, starting from eliminating extreme poverty and well-being, health, quality education, gender equality, etc. These are based on Millennium Development Goals, and these were adopted by whole 193 member states. Even Pope Francis came to the United Nations at that time to celebrate and to urge world leaders to agree on this matter. I negotiated with Pope Francis personally. I went to Vatican. You may check the historical record. No pope has come to the United Nations twice in Pope's legacy, but he came twice, and my urging to make sure that world leaders listen to your spiritual guidance and spiritual leadership, and he came. And I can still remember how long and how much excited world leaders when adopting these Sustainable Development Goals. Normally we see all these extended applause when you enjoyed the opera or excellent concert, but it was much more extended applause, standing ovation by all the world leaders. This is most far-reaching, most ambitious goals humankind has ever set out as a target. By 2030, make sure that there is nobody who goes to bed with hungry stomach. There is nobody who dies without any reason from preventable diseases. There should be no woman who dies while delivering babies. That any woman in South Sudan should be as safe as American or European women when they deliver their new lives. This is our basic goals, which I'm sure that working together in partnership, we can make it happen. I'm emphasizing the importance of partnership. So I'd like to quote one very important target of the Goal 17 of SDGs about partnership. It calls for, I quote, multi-stakeholder partnerships that mobilize and share knowledge, expertise, technology, and financial resources to support the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals in all the countries. In this regard, I'm proud to have expanded the United Nations partnership efforts with academic institutions. In 2010, I launched what is called United Nations Academic Impact, UNAI. It aligns institutions of higher education with the United Nations to actively support and contribute to the realization of the SDGs and other efforts. Educational institutions like Brown University and research centers are essential partners in our quest to achieve the SDGs. They serve as launch pads for new ideas and incubators to forge solutions to the seemingly insurmountable problems that we face. And the academic community, including from universities such as yours, has stepped up to the plate to help with these efforts to achieve the SDGs. I am pleased to see that Brown University's Climate and Development Lab and its Office of Sustainable Energy and Environmental Initiatives fit seamlessly into this paradigm through their research, educational, and service missions centered on development and environmental sustainability. Such a partnership initiative can facilitate the transfer of knowledge, advance critical research, and help instill a driving sense of sustainability in the global citizens of tomorrow. The work that Brown University pursues in this regard is a shining example of the power of partnership in action. But we must maintain our forward momentum together. In this regard, I'd like to introduce what I have been doing since my retirement from the United Nations. I established the Ban Ki-moon Center for Sustainable Development at Yonsei University as a part of Institute for Global Engagement and Empowerment. And also I have established last month in Vienna, Austria, the Ban Ki-moon Center for Global Citizens. Because I believe that the global citizenship among youngsters, youth, and all sectors of our life is the most important factor. Partnership is an action. Global citizenship is something which we have in our mind. When you act as not as a citizen of United States or whichever country you are coming from, when you act like global citizen, then we can make sure that all these conflicts and differences of positions will just reduce down. When I was a high school boy, I was lucky enough, very lucky boy, one of 140s, who were invited by the American Red Cross Society in 1962. I think most of the students must not have been born at that time. I was again very much privileged and honored to meet President John F. Kennedy at the White House at that time. He told us that, look, young students, the world leaders are not going along well. Of course, they were not going along well in the height of Cold War. He said that the national boundaries do not mean much at this time. At that time, national boundaries meant a lot, very seriously. All the worlds were completely closed. But he said that national boundaries didn't mean much. Young people, you can get along well. He already was meaning that global citizenship among young people was very important. It was most inspiring. At that time, I thought myself, what should I do? What could I do? First, for my country, which was very poor, and for the world. I never thought about at that time that what should I do, what could I do for the world? But as I grew up as a diplomat, I was thinking about the world. That is why I ended up becoming Secretary General of the United Nations. Ladies and gentlemen, let me think about all this sustainability. Sustainability is not possible without peace and security in any place. When there is no peace, you cannot engage in development. And that is why I'd like to take some minutes about the importance of peace and security, particularly when I'm coming from South Korea. The South Korea has been just experiencing all sorts of difficulties, including war in 1950, and including many provocations, military provocations by North Korea, and the political situation surrounding the Korean Peninsula. In this connection, I'm very much encouraged to see a small signs of reconciliatory process between the South and North over this Winter Olympic Games, which was concluded yesterday only. I sincerely hope that this very rare opportunity, small door of opportunity, will be able to alive, and so that this can be led to a genuine and more meaningful and constructive dialogue between the South and North. In this, the United States' role is vitally important. Korea is one of the allied countries with the United States. Without United States support, the Korea would never have been able to survive and would never been able to achieve such economic and social difficulties as social achievement with all democratic values and principles embedded in our society. While we must remain focused on the danger and threat that North Korea's nuclear and missile program posed to Republic of Korea, the United States, and the world, I'm cautiously optimistic that these Winter Olympic Games can bear further fruits of dialogue and reconciliation between the two Koreas. Another war on the Korean Peninsula is simply unacceptable and even unthinkable. So I applaud all actions taken to de-escalate the crisis through this Winter Olympic Games. ladies and gentlemen, I just wanted to focus the important relationship between security, peace, and development. Let me now talk about the climate change. I'm known as Mr. Climate in the international community because during the last 10 years, I have spent most of my time and energy in really forging global partnership and raising the awareness, the importance of climate phenomena among world leaders, including the President of the United States at the time of Republican administration, before Republican administration during President Bush. Now we have another Republican administration who is making a lot of trouble about this climate change. I can clearly tell you with conviction that there is no other international leaders in the world who has traveled as far and as extensively as I have done, and who has been speaking so passionately on the importance of addressing climate change issues. You have seen, unusually, the record-breaking heat waves and wildfires and tornadoes. All these phenomena are taking place because of climate change. Many people think that climate change is just something far away, distant issue, but it is with us today, and it will happen tomorrow. The climate change is happening much, much faster than one may think. The scientists of the world who belong to IPCC, Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, this is an organization of world-class climate scientists who have made clear through their 5 successive reports that climate change is happening because of the human behavior, human consumption, and all this uncaring attitude of our planet Earth. Warming planet is also contributing to the frequency and intensity of the major nor'easter here in this New England, and hurricanes that storm through New England multiple times a year. So we must take necessary steps to combat climate change immediately. If we don't, and these chaotic shifts will continue to make nor'easters and hurricanes more frequent and intense. I have been saying that the bottom line is that we don't have a planet B because we don't have, therefore, we don't have a plan B. So there cannot be any plan B when we are facing this global crisis. Therefore, I'm asking particularly young students that you should stand up and you should speak out. In that regard, I must again express my sincere concerns as a former Secretary General about what President Trump has taken. As the president of the world's richest, strongest countries, and most resourceful, to whom whole people around the world are looking to lead this campaign. What President Trump has said is politically short-sighted, economically irresponsible, scientifically wrong. He cannot go against the whole the world's people. He cannot go against the whole this natural phenomenon. And therefore, I'm asking all of you to really speak out. In that regard, I am very much encouraged by the grassroots movement in the United States. We are still in campaign. We are still in campaign, led by the governors of California, Oregon, Washington, Massachusetts, and here in Rhode Island. And more than 200 or 300 mayors of the United States, and more than 900 business leaders of the United States, which account for almost $10 trillion. I think they are in there. Regardless of what US government is taking, they are moving on. The Governor Jerry Brown of California is going to host his own summit meeting on climate change this year. And I have been speaking with him in Paris last December. In Paris last December, commemorating second anniversary of this Paris Agreement, the whole world's leaders were united. Only delegation whom we could not see was the US delegation. 197 state parties have signed this one. Even North Korea, Syria, Cuba, they signed and they are committed. They ratified these agreements. United States ratified it. Of course, they have not yet withdrawn technically, legally. But the political will by the United States not to implement what they have to do, US is normally required to take 1/3 of responsibilities, whatever it may be, like financial contributions. And then who will take the responsibility of this huge amount of money, 1/3? At least $100 billion should be mobilized by the end of 2020. Then thereafter, every year we have to mobilize $100 billion to support developing countries to help them mitigate and adapt to this climate change phenomenon. Therefore, I'm asking you particularly young people, to speak out. This is your future. This is the world where you will continue to live. Let's work together to make this succeeding generations will have no concern about their future. Ladies and gentlemen, again, during my time as Secretary General, I understood the power of youth and women. That is why this SDG makes clear that we'll pay more attention on youth, and we'll make sure that by 2030 this world will be 50-50 in terms of men and women. The number of women is slightly more than men in the world. If that is the case, at least equal opportunity should be given to women, if not more. But the current situation, reality of our world, is that still there are very few women leaders who are taking in decision-making positions. And that is why when I was appointed as a Secretary General, I have decided to make sure that this United Nations will be the half and half. That's why I established UN Women. This is the first ever organization devoting to women's empowerment. And I have been speaking to many kings, many prime ministers and presidents, whenever I was visiting, just to make sure that how many women parliamentarians are there, how many ministers, female ministers are there. I've been really trying to change this world to be 50-50. I'm sure that by 2030, this will change. And I'm also encouraged that my successor, Antonio Guterres, is very much committed to make this world much more, I think, even and empowered by youth and women. So we must do more to engage and empower these two groups, as they are the enablers to achieve our sustainable development and climate goals. By so doing, we can help unlock their unbridled potential as the agents of change and dynamic global citizens of tomorrow. Now, global citizenship is an important concept that can serve as a unique tool to help solve some of our most pressing issues and help us reach our global goals. Global citizens are those who identify themselves not as a member of a nation, but as a member of this world community. That's why, as I said, I recently established Ban Ki-moon Center for Global Citizens. Even though this may be still new baby, but I'm going to expand my capacity to work much, much more to foster a global citizenship. Now, ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to conclude my remarks by saying that despite the challenges we currently face, if we join together in strong partnerships and with much more global citizenship, we can move forward as global citizens, and we can achieve our global goals and create a brighter future. But to do this, I humbly ask you to harness your vision, studies, and work to prioritize global action. Look outside your immediate surroundings, your state, and your country. Think beyond yourselves. Now, particularly for those students who are studying in these most affluent societies, you may have some tendency of looking inside. Just try to look beyond the United States. Look where and how the people are doing in Africa and in other developing worlds. Dear students, you hold the keys to unlock a more sustainable, peaceful, and prosperous world. You are the innovators. You are the challenge makers. You are the leaders. And you are the global citizens of both today and tomorrow. Play your part in helping advance the United Nations Global Development Goals and climate change goals. We only have one planet, and our ability to sustain it will ultimately dictate our collective future. Your voices are more powerful than you may think. I'll leave you with the words of Horace Mann, the famous educational reformer, anti-slavery advocate, and Brown class of 1819 alumnus. He once said, I quote, "Let us not be content to wait and see what will happen, but give us the determination to make the right things happen," unquote. So please heed these words and go forward in your lives and careers with a strong global outlook, global vision, and the determination to make the right things happen now to help humanity and our planet flourish. By doing so, I'm confident that you can change the world. Ladies and gentlemen, particularly young students, let us work together to make this world better for all. I thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much for
truly wonderful and inspiring remarks, and a lot for students and everybody here to think about. We have a little bit of time for questions, and we have microphones on both sides, and I will take the prerogative of asking maybe the first two questions, and then we can start with Q&A from the floor. You know, when I introduced you, I did say that people have said that the job that you did is the most difficult job on earth. I think that was Dag Hammarskjöld who was the first person who said that. And, you know, we have a lot of aspiring international policy leaders in the audience. Can you tell us if it's true that it is the most difficult job on earth? And maybe just something about how you approach the position to be as successful as you were. Everybody brings their own personal skills and talents, but how did you think of it?
Now, as I said at the beginning, how successful I was, I think that has to be judged by the historians. But to be successful in anyone's work, one must have strong commitment. And one should have also passion. But passion does not always make you be successful. You must also have a compassion. So passion and compassion, that must be balanced. There are many people who have a passion only. I'm sure that young students, you are full of passion, but when your passion is not combined with compassion, this will be a little bit problematic. That's what I have been really trying to practice as a Secretary General in this world. Of course, while you travel and meet so many people, you have to have more sense of compassion. When you cannot just leave the place without doing something urgently for those people who are really sick and poor, whose human dignity and human rights are abused. So this is what we really need to think more seriously as during our daily lives. Working and studying in these academic institutions, you may have a tendency of not thinking about all this, what is happening outside of your world, but just try to look around.
So it's interesting that you raised the idea of compassion. I wanted to touch on one issue that you were very forceful on that you didn't mention during your remarks, and that was LGBTQ rights. So in 2012, you made a very powerful statement with respect to LGBTQ rights. You said, and I quote, "The very first article of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights proclaims, all humans are born free and equal in dignity and rights. All human beings, not some, not most, but all. No one gets to decide who's entitled to human rights and who is not." So why did it seem so important to you to make that stance at that time? And where do you think we stand on global progress on that issue?
Personally, I was raised up in a very conservative society, heavily influenced by Confucianism. So normally people regard me as a very conservative person. Working as a diplomat and working as a Secretary General, I have been able to open up my mind and eyes that there are so many people whose human dignity has not been properly respected. It's not their problem when they have a different sexual orientation. One can have, there are so many people who have a different sexual orientation. Simply because they are one of LGBTs, they're same people, same human being, must be given full right and full status. That started from the United Nations. When I arrived at the United Nations, I knew that there were many such staff who were living
under shade. And they were not coming out. They were not coming out. And I really wanted to meet them in person. Since Secretary General wanted to see them, they came. But they refused to take photo with me. But there are thousands of people who want to take picture with me. But they were, no picture, Mr. Secretary General. Then why? Because they do not want to be exposed, known by their colleagues. So I said, I will keep only for my private, personal purpose. I will not release it. Then I really I made publicly that I will make the United Nations as the best workplace where LGBTs could work. And I made it a policy. Of course, I have been very much seriously attacked by at least 60, 70 countries, ambassadors. They were blaming me, criticizing me, and I changed the whole system. When one have a couple, like a man and woman, or whatever the role may be, the UN has been recognizing that status when whose national government recognized. There are many European countries. And then I made it the rule that regardless of what their national governments did, United Nations recognize full rights in terms of salary of allowance. One important thing happened when I visited Malawi. The Malawi government has imprisoned one couple, LGBT couple, into prison. There was a big criticism in the world. Then I talked to Malawi president very privately, whether he could really pardon them on human rights. He said that we cannot accept it. My government does not recognize LGBT, so that's why they were put into hard labor, about 10 years prison terms. So I appealed to him. Then I was surprised myself when we were having joint press conference. He announced that because there was a special request from the Secretary General. On the occasion of my visit to Malawi, I pardoned this couple. They were released immediately. That was very much praised by the international community. Then I convened some international support campaign conference for LGBT. I was surprised that there were many people who were coming out. So that kind of political impact as a Secretary General of the United Nations really helped. And I'm still proud. Yes.
Well, I could ask you many more questions, but I think we're running a little bit short on time. Why don't we take maybe 4 questions from the audience, 2 from each side. So if you want to ask a question, please come down to the microphone. And they're running to be the first 4. Okay, we have our 4 questions. Thank you. And if you could keep your questions relatively short, and I'll repeat them. Thank you. Please, over here. And say who you are.
Hi, my name is Li Yuan. I'm a freshman at Brown. First, I want to thank you for coming here. This is a really emotional moment for me because you are someone who is really inspiring for me. I grew up in a small city in China and in a family which is almost impossible to come to study here at Brown. So when I think back, I didn't even know how it happened. Yeah, but I ended up pursuing a scholarship in Singapore and I'm here. So my dad would always joke about at home, he said okay, you should be someone like a Pan Kimoon. So that was something that's really inspiring for me. So I currently studying about like working on education for sustainable development and trying to promote like understanding between people from different cultures. So maybe my question is, what do you think we can do to educate the next generation to achieve our sustainable developmental goals? Yeah, thank you so much.
Instead of one by one, going one by one, maybe we have two,
take
three
a
more
number.
questions, and then that will save time. Yeah.
That's a
yeah.
very good idea. So
Yeah.
thank you. So over here.
Hi, thank you so much for coming. My name is Francis. I'm a senior. My question is specific. It's about the the Paris Climate Agreement. So I'm wondering, how confident do you feel that a nation like Syria will actually comply with the agreement, considering its state of political turmoil?
So you're specifically interested in Syria
So, Syria and other countries.
that are in turmoil.
Yeah, essentially, we have massive agreement in the,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. So another question, please.
Oh, we are just going for all 4 questions.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, thank you so much. My name is Ji-Hoon Lee, and I'm extremely proud, especially as an international student from Korea, born in Seoul, and also a good friend of your daughter-in-law's brother, Yoo Jae-hyuk. I just messaged him with a photo of you, and he just told me to say hello to you. So sorry for a long introduction.
And do you have a question?
Excuse me? Oh yeah, I do have a question. Yeah, I came from the upstairs to ask. So my question as an anthropology student is, so I noticed while we talk North Korea, we focus too much on those leaders, Kim Jong-un and Trump, that we demonize the people. We forget often that it's a country of 25 million people who has their culture, who has their life, who has their history. So as the former Secretary General, how do you think we can actually humanize North Korea and kind of shift this discourse, dialogue? Thank you.
Three.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me first answer 3 questions. Education, the power of education, quality education is the most important. This is a sort of cost-cutting issues. Among 17 goals, there are some goals are specifically focused on something, but are some goals which are cost-cutting. Without education, nobody can work to improve or whatever, realize all these goals. Therefore, quality education is one of the essential goals. Among 17 goals, the people had some philosophical priorities, like first goal is you make sure that everybody has something to eat. Second and third must be healthy. And fourth goal, number 4, is education. I was a child of war, but we were very much hungry. Our stomach was very hungry. But at the same time, we were also hungry for education. Even though all these classrooms or there were no textbooks, we were really thirsty and we were really hungry for education. That's why I think Korean people were able to achieve economic and social development. And therefore, United Nations pays utmost priority on educating the people. The target of MDG was to bring all these school-aged children into school. But unfortunately, we have more than 60 million people out of school at this time. So it must be a priority now to bring all these 60 million children back to school and provide quality education now. We aimed at primary education, now we are aiming secondary education. And so the power and importance of education is very, very much emphasized by the United Nations. When it comes to refugees, there are millions of refugees. The first thing United Nations do is first we set up tents and provide something to eat, and then we set up schools, even though some makeshift schools. That's what the United Nations do. So I'll stop there. About all these conflicts issues, like in Syria or Yemen or Iraq, and how to handle all this terrorists and extremism, these are really very serious and troubling. I have been urging world leaders, join your forces, join your strength to address all these conflicts. Then why these conflicts happen? The root causes, if you look at the root causes, this happens largely not because of the people, but because of the leadership people. Because of lack of caring for their people, then people are not happy. Sometimes this unhappiness, it develops into concerns, and concern is developing into anger. When anger is burst out, then there's a conflict. They're fighting against the government. They're fighting against something. So I've been urging the world leaders, please have the global citizenship. Please listen very carefully and sincerely to the challenges and aspirations of your people. If you do not listen to the people, then you will end up in having conflict. This is what's happening in Syria for 7 years. Next month it will be full 7th year, where I think almost half of their population have been dispersed, refugees, and almost 60% of infrastructures have been destroyed. Yemen, again, Iraq. So there may not be one-fits-all solutions to this. There should be some combined political solidarity by the world leadership level. That's what I'm emphasizing this one. As a former Secretary General, I really tried to resolve this crisis in Syria, Yemen, and elsewhere. But when leaders are not united, then it's very difficult now. How to handle all this Korean situation, and how to handle all these provocative provocations by North Korean leader, and how to read President Trump's messages about North Korea and other issues. Well, there are a lot of things which I really want to say, but basically, it's important that world should be united to making North Korea heard clearly and loudly. That is not the way any member state of the United Nations should behave that way. It's the most irresponsible, most provocative country it has become. The North Korea by now has become the worst norm breakers. There's not a country in the world who has been sanctioned by 10 Security Council resolutions. There's no such country in the world who has been abrogating all the agreements, all the regulations. Human rights, there's no human rights in North Korea. And they have been developing all nuclear weapons against global regime, ballistic missiles. Then how to handle this country, I think first of all, we have to be united to send a clear message to North Korea. And then at the same time, when you raise this question of President Trump, I think many people have a different interpretation different understanding what President Trump has been talking about the Korean Peninsula. But I have some different way of understanding. If you read the underlying messages of President Trump, even though it sounds very much unpredictable, very much very strong rhetorics, but under this, I don't believe that he is looking for any possibility of making military strikes, military solution. In any way, in principle, military solutions are not sustainable. A peaceful resolution is always sustainable. But dealing with North Korea, such a dome breaker, sometimes it is necessary that the people like President Trump talks tough and loud and clear message. I believe that North Korea got a clear message from President Trump. This is my comment, yeah.
Thank you. Do I have time for a few more? I'm looking at Marissa. 2 more questions. So one from each side, and I'm sorry for the other people who are waiting in line. Why don't we start here? We'll write down 2 more. Yeah,
sure.
Please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary General. My name is Derek Freitas, and I represent a peasant farming association from Romania called Eco Rurales. Yeah, I really appreciate, and our organization appreciates your guidance with going past the Millennium Development Goals and continuing that to go toward the Sustainable Development Goals. Your leadership is much appreciated within civil society, so we really want to say that to you. My focus is really about how to get civil society more involved through this triangular partnership with private sector, civil society, and governments around the world, which are the member states that make up the UN. One comment I'd like to make is that we specifically are a part of the international peasant movement, La Via Campesina, and we've worked with FAO, the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, to try to get civil society more involved in making decisions and being a part of the delegations of the regional conferences around the world regarding agriculture. I'm getting to my question. So my question is, do you support a universal declaration on the rights of peasants, which is currently being discussed in the Human Rights Council? And also, do you support and will you work with your successor to try to work on access to markets, land, and also traditional seeds, which are, the Sustainable Development Goals of zero hunger, and also life below water for aquaculture and life on land, which is related to agriculture. I'd like to see how you feel about that and if you really support peasant rights.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And one more question, and this will be the last one.
All right. Hello, my name is Moses Zelai. I'm a graduate student at the University of Rhode Island. I'm originally from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. I have one question and one request, if I may. The question is that right now the population of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, 70% of it young men and women. And the current leadership established the Kingdom 2030 vision, which is supposed to hire and get more women established in leaderships, and we have already seen a lot of those positive results of that vision. So what are your advice to the young men and women back there in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia? That's my question. My request is that, are you willing to hire me at the Ban Kimoon Center without paying me? Food and shelter should be enough, starting this summer.
Thank you very much for your question. And would you like to answer those? You don't have to answer the request.
I have no power, no authority at this time to hire anybody. Okay. I have spoken about peace and security, sustainable development, and human rights. Among all these 3 goals, which is more important over another? I think they are all equally important. But what's the use of all sustainable development or affluence or richness if there is no respect for human dignity, human rights? If there is no peace, you cannot expect the human rights will be protected. Therefore, it's all interconnected, but among all this, human rights should be given number one priority. Number one priority. That's why, while we cannot give any priority over another goals, I initiated what is known as Human Rights Upfront Initiative. So in all the cases, the human right should be upfronted, must be given first priority. When a human being is born, all the equality and human rights should be protected. The human rights upfront has now become one of the most important initiatives by the United Nations, and this will be the most important one. That's why Human Rights Council, in fact, there used to be Human Rights Commission, but this has been elevated as a reform and as a way to reflect the importance of human rights above everything. There are many people whose human rights are not fully protected all around the world. So we have to make sure that there should be no discrimination on the reasons of, first of all, gender or social status, political status, sexual orientations, and whatever the reasons may be. The human right should be protected and must respected at all costs. That's my answer. A second question, this Kingdom of Saudi Arabia has been playing a very important role in maintaining peace and prosperity. I have been mostly dealing with the former King Abdullah, who passed away a couple of years ago. He has been playing sort of balancing, and not only balancer, but also as a leader, the elder among the leaders in the Middle East. Whatever he said, I think people listened. And I used his political status and leadership, eminent leadership of King Abdullah. Now, we have transition of power, and we have been experiencing some instability within the kingdom and their relationship with other Middle East countries, particularly vis-a-vis Yemen, and they are now having some dispute between Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Arab Emirates, and versus Qatar. And this kind of division within the region is not helpful at all. I have been meeting with Prince Mohammed Salman, who is now really a real de facto leader of Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. I sincerely hope that all these kind of divisions of policies and views will be harmonized among themselves. And as a former Secretary General, I have said that I'm ready to provide any mediation or whatever may be required. I have had some happy relationship of Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. When I was working for gender empowerment, I found that there was not a single woman in the parliament. In Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, there is no parliament, but there is only shura, what is called, they say this is a parliament, shura. But it is not like a real parliament. There are not opposition parties or where they debate the issues. Then one day I visited Saudi Arabia. I told the King Abdullah, Your Majesty, I'm sorry to point out that in your country there is not a single woman who is sitting in shura, which is regarded as a parliament. You are one of the 10 countries in the world where not a single woman is sitting. So he immediately appointed 32 women into the shura members. That was his power. Even through that kind of power, I really wanted to change. I went to Kuwait, I met the Emir, and again emphasized the importance of having a women parliament. So it's now changing. There are not many countries left where women parliamentarians are not sitting, but I'm sure that my successor will continue to do. I thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you.